I love this, Dad. I hope you're having fun.
Every once in a while, we'll get that sound from Dawn.
I know. Sorry. I guess maybe we'll have to say I'm here with Dawn and
When
Ashley.
she talked about great grandpa's like eyes, you were just like,
No, I actually was looking at me when he was talking.
Well,
She's
it's so
just like-
unusual. But
well,
then,
I know, but like her face looked.
I was imagining it without that.
I know, you're just like.
What?
you talked about Grandpa taking his glass eyes out and just like having sockets. It's very unusual.
I can't hide my emotions very
Yeah,
well.
no,
Ashley
you're
was
just
looking at me.
Listen, her face, Grandpa.
I can't even imagine.
Grandpa, look, her face is just like.
Ooh.
And then she put her hand to her mouth.
And just like you, as a little kid, you had no idea that people could see when they were old. Like you just thought that was like normal.
Yeah.
Which is, I just find that fascinating.
I remember I was at my Aunt Betty's one time and went next door to visit the boy next door, and his grandmother was there. And I asked his grandmother, I said, why are all grandmas so old? Okay? And I didn't think anything of it. I don't even remember what the response was. Next day, my Aunt Betty tells me you shouldn't tell grandmas that they're old, or any women that they're old. They don't like to be old, or for people to tell them that they're old. And she's given me a lecture on this. And I didn't know I did any. I just asked an innocent question. Why are all grandmas so old? You know? Anyway, at that time I was like, every grandma I met was so old. You know? So anyway, I don't know. But I'm here with Dawn and Ashley again, and Christy's doing the video. And Ashley, what question you wanted me to say a little bit more about the business? Well, I mean, the business is more now art supplies. In 1980, I bought Martin F. Weber Company. It was F. Weber and changed it to Martin F. Weber. And it's the oldest company in this country, founded in 1853, making art supplies. We do TV videos, and we've done a few thousand of them. And they make Permalba, they make Bob Ross, and various other art supply products. But it's manufacturing business. They make almost everything. In Detroit, we have Martin Universal Design now, and Martin Universal Design mainly is designing artist accessories, everything but the chemical products, and you know, drawing tables, easels, tabourets, portfolios, etc. And then we have them made someplace. When I first started importing, I was importing from Germany and from Italy, then Japan and Malaysia and Korea, and now mostly from Korea and China, now a little bit from Vietnam and so on. So there's always a movement, I think, on some products, you know, that we have where that are commodities to the country with the lowest price labor, and then today we sell, you know, all over Europe. We sell a little bit in South America. We sell. Canada is the biggest export market, I guess, followed by UK, and then between Taiwan and Korea. And we also sell in China. So we sell our products in quite a number of countries now around the world, and through the two different businesses. You know, some of the products we sell FOB China that are made in China, and customers take delivery in Australia or New Zealand or Korea, UK, or even the US or Canada. And then from Weber we ship everywhere, and so on. So anyway, so much for, yes?
How did you get the name Martin? Where does Martin come from?
Oh, when I was 16 years old, my dad sent me to Niles, Michigan to find a solution to a problem. We were selling a template line, which was a very important line for us. The templates sold for $10 a piece, and there were no other templates for $10. Average template was $1. And these were, our vendor was Ray Martin in Niles, Michigan. So we couldn't get deliveries for about 2 months, and it was really a problem. My dad says, solve the problem. So I called Ray and says, what's going on? He says, well, my partner died, so there's no production. He had been the manufacturing. And he says, I have the, the customers. And he says, and I did the designing and I took care of the customers. So I says, well, we need these templates. And he says, well, I'd love to sell the templates to you, but I don't have any manufacturing. So I talked to a friend of mine that was making a few triangles for us and from plastic, and I said, you know anything about making templates? And I'd gotten details from Ray. Anyway, make a long story short, I told a neighbor, this guy says they're being made with Gorton 3U pantographs. And I says, you know what they are? He says, sure. I says, can you make templates for us off those? And he says, sure, if you got the tooling. So I went out to see Ray and visited his partner, Thielacker, and wife, and made a deal to buy the machines. First I made my deal with Ray, to get the patents and the designs and the customer lists and so on to take over the business. And I told him I'd give him $4,000. I mean, we negotiated. He wanted 10. We ended up at 4. And the deal I worked out was I would pay him $1 a template as I sold them, up to $4,000. So no money down. I went to see Thielacker's wife then about the machines to get the Gorton 3U pantographs. He had 2 of them in his garage, this Mr. Thielacker. And she sold me those really for nothing. I mean, $50. And she really was asking for nothing. I gave her $50 for them. But she wanted just to get them out of the garage because, her husband had died 2 months ago, and, she wanted to use the garage. So then I rented a trailer, had to get a trailer hook put in the back of my car, rented a trailer, got somebody to help me putting the pantographs into the car because they're pretty good sized machines, and probably like this square, and I tied them up inside the trailer and hauled them home. And Thielacker's customer list were a bunch of shoeboxes, 6 shoeboxes with customer names, and one only had customer names and addresses and discounts. He was selling to Alvin and Dietzken, who are big companies, so that was nice, and Post, which became Teledyne Post. The others were just small dealers, maybe 40 small dealers, and the 3 were distributors. Then he had about 5 other shoeboxes that were full of letters that people had sent wanting to buy them, either users or dealers, and he was not very big on the marketing. I mean, he said, I like to design the templates. So then we made a little handwritten agreement saying that, before I left, that if he designed any new templates, we would get the first opportunity to buy them, to buy the design from him. And I said, if you get a patent on them, we'll pay you 10% for the life of the patent, but you get the patent. Spend the upfront money. I didn't want to commit to spend upfront money without my dad there. Dad didn't say spend money. He said solve the problem. So I didn't feel I had the authority to offer upfront anything. So I told Mr. Martin, I'll give you 10% if you get the patent for the life of the patent. And he agreed. So we made a little handwritten agreement. He died a few years later, and then I paid his wife until she died. Then I paid his son until the patents expired. And
so you brought Martin into the name.
And I brought Martin then into the name because Martin had a good reputation. And so when I named the first company, wholesale business, Martin Instrument Company, and at first it was just an activity of Northwest Blueprint selling to dealers. But what I found when I got these dealers to use my catalog, they also wanted to buy all the supplies from us, the things that they didn't have. So we were getting a wholesale business, and so on. So we just called it Martin Instruments so that the local dealers wouldn't be bothered or offended by buying from Northwest Blueprint, their competitor. They could buy from Martin Instrument. And then I can't remember what year, but I really don't remember what year, but I formed Martin Instrument as a corporation. And I think it was somewhere around 75, 74, I don't know. It was 63, I know, was when I went to Ray Martin. It might have been, 69. 69, I think I formed Martin Instrument as a corporation, and then eventually became Martin Universal Design. I bought Universal Industries from Tommy Kovas in California, moved it to Detroit, and eventually, and into that building in Detroit, 4444 where we are now. That was an interesting story, buying that building. We were looking around for an old building that we could use as a warehouse facility and maybe rent out some space to tenants to help pay for the building. And there were a lot of old buildings around, but the biggest problem was roofs. Some of them had no roof. Most of the old buildings around required a lot of work. They were old factories or whatever. We found that building for sale. They wanted $250,000, and I made an offer for the building of $200,000, subject to the approval of my, attorneys, approval of my engineers that the building was good, and various other, what do you call it, the bank for a mortgage, and so on. And they came back and made a counteroffer of, I'll say, 220 or something, they said they would accept 200,000, but they wanted to close in 2 weeks. And they didn't care what approvals I needed or didn't need it, but close in 2 weeks. So that was a counteroffer. So I came back and I said, I'll give you 150,000, closing in 2 weeks, although still subject to inspection of the roof. And they knew the roof was bad. So they came back and said, we'll accept 150,000, but closing in 2 weeks unconditionally. All of these things are counteroffers, so that means they didn't accept my offer. So then I offered 110,000 and said I'll close in 2 weeks unconditionally. And they hemmed and hawed and complained because, I dropped the price in half at this point, and I said, that's it. 110,000, I'll close in 2 weeks. In fact, I might even set a week. And I closed. Okay, so after that, the next day I get in an airplane in New York. This is in August of 1980, at the same time that just before I bought Weber, and early in August, I think like August 1st, and I bought Weber on August 11th.
Denny's birthday.
Yeah. So I'm on my way to New York, and I open up the Wall Street Journal, and there is a interview with a fella that is the CEO or chairman of the board of American Manufacturing. And they own also Prestolite Manufacturing, which had been in our building before us. It was the last tenant in there, or last company in there, Prestolite spark plugs. So anyway, I read in the newspaper that this guy has decided that since, I can't remember his name, it was, like Stein or something, but anyway, or Weinstein maybe. But anyway, he says that since the stock market is not valuing American Manufacturing Company correctly, he is going to liquidate the company because on liquidation he can get three times what the stock market says it's worth. Okay, so obviously what he's doing is liquidating all the assets, and that building was one of their assets. Now, that building probably had been written off because at the time I bought it, let's say it's like 60 years old, had been written off 30 years before and had no value on their books. So if he sold it for $100,000, it was a $100,000 profit. So he's happy. I'm happy. I got a heck of a deal, although did have to spend $100,000 to put a roof on it because the roof was in bad shape. But still, for $200,000, I got a pretty nice building, 155,000 square feet, with with a decent roof, and so on, and so that's how I got that building. Where you're at.
44 lot now.
That's right. Our main operation at that time been at 13450 Farmington Road, and I had a sub-warehouse that I was renting from my attorney on Schoolcraft, an empty building he used to use as an office. That was only 5,000 square feet. So anyway, we got a good deal, I think, eventually out of that. So
what do you hope for the future with your business?
Well, I'd like to see my children continue to run the business and so on. I mean, Dad used to say you have to constantly reinvent yourself. Like when drafting supplies disappeared. I mean, things are going to change. I mean, I don't see enough young people. Young people are so into technology stuff. iPads, computers and things they can do, games, Xboxes and all this stuff. I worry about whether or not they're going to paint. Is there going to be enough people taking art and going to art school and enough people painting? I mean, Dad and I were right in 1980 that computers were not going to be, that art was not going to be replaced by computers, real art. But commercial art was, but fine art is still predominantly with a paintbrush, and it's been that way for 1,000 years. However, that don't mean it's forever. I mean, and if there's not enough young artists coming, it could change. I am surprised today in previous economic situations, every time there was an economic decline, our furniture business tanked. And our consumable business continued on, steady, if not strong. Well, here we are this year, and Weber with consumable business is down almost 5%, and Mudd with the furniture business as an anchor is up 28%, and with higher margins, not just sales. So what's going on? Something is different. I mean, we have to start thinking about what we have to do and what my children are going to have to do to work with the new reality that maybe less people will be picking up a paintbrush, but what bothers me about it is we're still selling easels, drawing tables, stools, portfolios. Something's going into them. Or was there the pent-up demand of 3 years of that business being weak? And now, just like cars, all of a sudden people have to buy cars because they can't keep repairing them? you know, so they have to replace their table, or they have to replace their easel, have to replace their portfolio, they wore out. I don't know what happened this year. I hope it continues as far as mud is concerned, and we can figure out what we need to get Weber kicking ass again. You know.
Do you think that maybe families are getting too wrapped up in all the computers and things, and their parents are finally realizing that maybe they need a break from that and they need to go back old school and start
I don't
to
know.
draw?
I don't know.
Color,
I mean, the
start to-
problem is, that's all great if that happens, but at some point, the young'uns are going to be the old ones. The young'uns are going to be the parents. And if they're not into art and don't feel that there's a place for, quote, art and crafts in their home, then they're not going to treat their kids that way, and their kids are going to be into whatever the new Xbox is. And I'm talking about long term, what is the future? I don't know. You know, I'm concerned, you know, that my children can find a future in this business, but as Dad used to say, you have to constantly reinvent them yourself. Maybe, and I mean, I don't know, maybe we need to be selling apps for art. You know, maybe we need to be selling Xboxes for art. I don't know. You know, what the future holds. I don't know what it is. You know, all I know is, as if history proves itself, just as our business evolved so many times and changed so many times from, you know, I mean, when I was an importer, I was one of 2 importers in this country, in our field. Now everybody's an importer. My customers are all importers. I got 30, 40, or 100 competitor importers. Everybody's importing. How do you differentiate yourself? You constantly try to design new products and so on, but you know, importing is no longer a mystery to people. It's a small world, you know, and so on. I was the first one importing from Italy at all in our business and our industry, okay? And I was probably the first one in our industry importing from China and from Korea. Okay, now still Korea for quality. I mean, because Korea can give us U.S. type quality, German type quality. China is still really tough in QC. You got to follow the QC really tight, follow every order. You know, really tight. But what's going to be the future? I don't know. Vietnam? Africa? I don't know. And it seems like no matter what you do, you know, as my dad used to say in the old days, if you got a good idea, people will follow you within a year. Now I think you have a good idea, you're doing something, somebody sees you, they'll be doing it in 2 or 3 months. You know, you don't have the lead time to try to get your money back on a new idea that you used to. You gotta, I mean, we protect things we're gonna do until we really got it in stock, you know, rather than show it ahead of schedule because, you know, even years ago, I mean, 30 years ago, I went to a CHA show, or HIA at that time, showed a new easel. By the time we got to NAMTA, a competitor had copied the easel, which is a prototype, along with the defects. Okay, well, that was 30 years ago. When you look at now how fast people copy things, you know, I don't dare take something to a show unless I'm ready to ship it. You know, so I have the full lead time.
What is the one piece of advice that your dad taught you that you still use today?
I would say biggest thing is you don't sell to anybody one time, you don't buy from anybody one time. You always got to look at long-term in relationships. People buy from people more than companies. And, you know, he used to say you treat every customer like it's, you know, you're out on a date with your girlfriend or whatever. You know, you want to treat them so that they're going to be happy and want to keep coming back for more. And, you know, you look everything to do long term. You don't try to make a one-time order. His dad used to say, no order big enough to chase for a one-time order. You know, you want to chase for the customer to build customers, not orders. And the same with your vendor relationships. You always want to look for the long term. Make sure they have a chance to make money, so they'll be there when you need them, and also so you'll be the one that's getting the product when the product is tight. If there's only so much to go around and they know that you're going to pay them and let them make some money and pay them promptly, they're going to ship you before they ship somebody else. So I would say that's still, I mean, people buy from people rather than companies. And, you know, that one little thing that's outside your office, you know, Dad used to say something to the tune of that no business is successful because it is old or long established. It is successful because there are people in it that live it, sleep it, and dream it, and are willing to accept change immediately and try to turn it to their benefit. You know? In other words, reinventing. Reinvent yourself. You know? You have to constantly be looking at what's going on. Business is dynamic. The stagnant company goes down the tube. Yeah. Okay, so much for business. Ashley, what else you wanted me to talk about?
Let's just take a look at when your kids were born. Tell us about
Well,
the day we were born.
I don't remember every one.
Okay, just a little
I remember. I
something
remember when Dawn was born, the first one, because I mean it was like, you know, I kept hanging around the house because, you know, Mom was due, and I didn't want to miss anything. And then I had an appointment with a school teacher at Tecumseh High School who was also the driving ed teacher, and I wanted to sell them drafting supplies. And it was summertime, time to write the orders now or it'd be too late. And he was one of those guys that liked to count the noses before, you know, the placing his order. So usually the orders were for schools written, most of my orders, June, July. But this guy made an appointment with me for August something, and I went. I asked your mom, everything okay? No, I got a little bit of pain this morning, but I think it's just indigestion. So I drove to Tecumseh. I arrive in Tecumseh, and the teacher is standing in front of the school, waving at me as I come up, and which I didn't expect. I figured I was going to find him in back on the driver's ed course. He's standing in front of the school at the front door, waving at me. I come up, I put my window down, and he says, "Your wife's having a baby. You got to go to the hospital." So I put it in high gear and raced to the hospital as fast as I got there, and they told me, "You're going to have a baby pretty soon." I sat down in the waiting room. Those days you didn't get a chance to go into the delivery room. And I sat in the waiting room, and probably not 10 minutes, and the doctor comes out and tells me, "You've got a beautiful little baby daughter." And that's how it happened.
Did Mom know you were there? Did she
I don't
leave
know.
back?
I don't know. I told the nurse that, you know, I saw when you directed me there to please tell my wife that I'm here. But I mean, she says it's going to happen really soon, you know, and it didn't take 10 minutes that I was there. I don't know how long your mother was there, but it couldn't have been too long because I drove to Tecumseh, which is probably an hour drive from our house, and then back to the hospital was it Oakwood Hospital or
Botsford.
No, Botsford, yeah.
What about Larry?
Botsford. Larry, I don't remember, and nor do I remember Elizabeth, other than I was there, and I waited longer in the waiting room, and I took your mother to the hospital for both of those. There was nothing particularly exciting about the day. I mean, other than Mom says we're going to have a baby, and we went to the hospital.
Did she hold off on going to dinner? Did she hold off on telling you so she could eat a good meal?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've heard that story. I don't remember. I remember we were putting up furniture. No, we were putting up drapes one day. Oh, that day she had a miscarriage. That was before Larry was born. And, you know, I don't remember, other than your mother telling me it's time to go to the hospital in both those cases, me sitting in that same waiting room on the same couch, only for much longer periods, waiting for the baby to be born. I don't remember how long, but much longer periods. It wasn't like 5 or 10 minutes that Dawn arrived after I got there. On Denny, it's memorable because I went there and I was invited to the delivery room. I saw Denny being born, and I remember your mother asked me, "So what does he look like?" I says, "He looks like a football center." And I says, "No neck, just like his dad." And your mom says, "Over my dead body, he'll play football," and so on. So I remember saying, "Well, Mr. Dennis Elmer, you've heard it directly from your mom, no football." And I'm holding him in my arms at that point. I had him before your mom did. They wiped him off and handed him to me. And that's what I'm describing. No neck, football center.
What were the personalities of everybody?
Well, you were, I would say the most pleasant personality, Dawn, and we kept saying, I kept saying we should have named her Angel or Angela. I mean, she was a little angel, and you were easy to get along. You got a little bit older, you got a little bit sneaky, I think, and you'd do things like let the bird out of the cage. Grandma would be chasing after the bird, and then you'd run out the side door because you always wanted to run out of the house.
I wanted to escape too, huh?
Yeah, you wanted to escape too, out the side door. And so, we'd have to find you and so on. But, we got onto your game, and Grandma even got onto your game. And then she'd let the bird go while she made sure that you were secure, before she put you in that high chair, whatever, so you couldn't escape, and then chase the bird. And Lawrence, or Larry, he was really, from the very beginning, born with a full head of hair, but he cried much more than you did. I mean, you were really easy. Mom and I took turns, at night, and giving you a bottle when you would make a noise, cry, putting you back to sleep. And I'd sing you a little yellow lullaby, and you'd go right to sleep. And after your bottle, burp you in a little lullaby, and you'd be in Z-land, and I'd put you in. Lawrence, and he wouldn't shut up. He was so much work. And, in all kinds of cases, but mostly, I'll say right from the beginning, he didn't want to go back to sleep. And Mom was like, can't come back to bed until the kid's sleeping, And so I started telling Mom, hey, first one was Angel, then came here Beelzebub. I mean, what a difference, And so on. You think, they're all going to be the same, but no, they aren't. Elizabeth was very much like you. I mean, she was, really quick to go to sleep, and she was not as talkative as you. I mean, you were 3 years old and talking to everybody at the store, telling them, we eat this kind of cereal. These are good candies over here. You should have some of these. And you'd tell other kids that might have been in the carts, what you ate at home or what you recommended or whatever. And Elizabeth, neither Elizabeth or Larry were as talkative as you. I mean, you were the most always talking to people, always. And from at least 3.5 or whatever up that I remember pushing around in carts and so on, or taking you any place. If you were holding my hand, you'd pretty soon be talking to somebody, and so on. And then Elizabeth was quieter, much quieter, and I would certainly put her back in the angelic range, very easy to handle, and from early age, easy to get back to sleep after her bottle, and changing and burping and so on, and then Denny, who came long after, and I kept kidding your mother, about him, but our little bundle, fun and surprise, then he turned out to have this thing about sports, which I never figured out. I mean, as a baby, he was pretty easy care, low maintenance. And but at 3 years old, I remember him jumping up and down on the couch and yelling at the television during a baseball game at something to Sparky. And I'm not sure what it was about. I don't remember. But he was yelling at the TV in the baseball game, you know. And I had no idea what's going on because I had no interest in sports. I mean, when the newspaper came in those days to the front door, I would take the sports section and leave it in the garbage before I brought the newspaper into the house. And here I get this son is jumping up and down and so excited about sports. And the only thing I can figure is he found it himself by twisting the dial or whatever with the television.
Well, he
Yeah.
won the World Series in '84. He was 4 years old.
Yeah.
It's a pretty exciting year for
Yeah.
baseball.
Well, I remember, he was about 3.5, and I couldn't believe he's sitting there yelling at the TV. And if I recall, he was saying something Sparky or Morris or something, about pitching or about something. I can't remember. All I know is I'm like, what the hell is he talking about, and so on. So, I mean, everybody was a little bit different, obviously. And, I always thought he would be using de-Elmer, but, didn't work out that way. And so on. But anyway, that's my memories of that,
What are your hopes and dreams for us? Like, give us a little bit of advice of what you would say to each of us. Like, what do you hope?
Well, I hope everybody stays healthy and that none of you have OPMD. Obviously, I mean, the odds are against it, but I hope none of you have OPMD. I started to see the first symptom, which I didn't know at the time, but I know now. I started to see the first symptom at age 48, when I had difficulty lifting. I had to lift my leg to pull it into the car if I sat in the back seat, where it was a little bit tight in cars. I'd get this foot, reach in and put it in, and this one, I'd have to assist it. And
Like in the back of a taxi or when you're traveling?
Anything. And, I was married to Vicki, and Vicki said, that's not right, something's wrong there. And I said, it's no big deal. I ignored it. And then a couple of years later, I noticed my eyelids were closing. I mean, I had different people tell me, and I looked in the mirror and I could see my eyelids were getting tighter. And I thought, well, I remember, I wasn't that old, but I remember my Uncle Joe in pictures, later in life, his eyelids were very tight like that. So I figured I'm just getting old. But they kept shrinking more, the eye opening. And then one day my doctor told me to go see a certain doctor that specializes in eyelid surgery. My Dr. Coy Carver, who is my diabetic ophthalmologist, he said, Dennis, if you wait 3 more months, you'll be blind. He says, your eyes are closing. They'll be closed in 3 months. Got to get this surgery done. So I went to Dr. Neshe, who wrote the book on eyelid surgery, and he says, you got something neurologically going, go to the Kresge Clinic, find out what's going on before I can do the surgery. And I went to Kresge. Kresge couldn't find anything. I mean, they did a bunch of tests and all kinds of stuff. At first they said it has to be one or the other of these 2 things. But upon testing, it was neither. They sent me to Harper Hospital. Harper Hospital said, it has to be one of 2 things. They tested, took biopsies off my bones. Neither one. It's not either one. Then my doctor, my regular general practitioner, said, why don't you go see the neurological specialist at Ford? So I did. She gave me the name of the number 2 neurological doctor at Ford. And he said, it's probably one of these two things. Turned out to be neither. But then he said, why don't you talk to my boss, Dr. Sarapathy, which I've heard since then is one of the top doctors in the country for neurological muscle diseases. And anyway, he looked at my file about that thick and he says, I think I can figure it out. He says, it looks like you've been tested for just about everything now, so there's only so many things it can be. By process of elimination, we'll see what I can do. He says, we'll make an appointment for you to come back in 2 weeks. I have to review your file. Came back in 2 weeks and he diagnosed me. And then he did a test, which took about 3 months to get the results, and I was diagnosed as OPMD. So I hope none of you guys get that, and that none of my grandchildren get it. But recently, somebody was telling me, I forget, one of my, when I went to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, the MD doctor there was saying that there is genetic something or another that can be done now, I forget what the word is, so that if you know that you have it because you're tested, that they can do something to make sure that you don't pass the bad gene onto your children. So, what amounts to is you have 2 of every gene in your body. One of every gene in my body is defective, has this defect called OPMD. And the odds are 50-50 that I pass it on to one of you. I hope none of you get it. There's nothing I can do about it if I passed it to you, or that you can do about it. And there's no cure for it now. The only thing is that anybody that's planning to have kids in the family should get tested for OPMD, because they can tell from the time you're born if you've got that mutation of your genes that you have OPMD. So if Ashley's going to have kids, she should get tested. And then if she has that gene in her body, it's not going to bother her until she's in her 50s. However, if she decides to have children, I'm sure she don't want to pass it on to her children. Okay?
Even if I don't have it?
If you have it, you can pass it. If you don't have it, you can't pass it.
I can't, so I need to get tested
Yeah.
first.
If you're tested, then, I mean, she could be tested. You don't, if you're not planning to have more children,
But, yeah.
You can be tested if you want to know.
But she shouldn't get
She should be tested
but she'll
before
never,
she has
she'll
children.
never get life insurance policy then. Like, it's better for me to first find out.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because if I don't have it, why start something?
Yeah, but the thing is, and she should buy insurance, I guess, at an earlier age when it's much cheaper, and she can buy paid-up life insurance policies now, much cheaper now than later. I mean, I bought paid-up life insurance policies for Madonna when I was 40 years old that cost me not very much. And, and if you have it, then I'd say she should buy whatever she thinks she's going to want in her lifetime of life insurance policies before she's tested, yes, in case she has it. Because then when you fill out a form, it says, do you have any
disease, and you'll have to admit that then.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you would like to give each one of us kids, starting with Denny?
I would say I tell all of my children that the most important thing is family. Friends come and go, but family's there forever. And you lean on each other, you help each other, you support each other, and you, if you're working together, however, just like you try to support the family business by giving us free ads, and so on, but you help each other and support each other, whatever it is, And Denny and Jill are probably going to need somebody to lean on to as they get older, because they didn't have any children and can't have any children. Either they talked a few times about adopting, but they don't have children to be with and give them that kind of support as they get old. And as they get old, they're going to have to rely, or they're going to need support. So for each of you to help each other in every way that you can. That's what's most important. If there's anything I pass on, and I would say the grandkids also, should know the same thing, to be able to support their siblings and each other and their cousins and their mom and dad, to be there for them. Okay? That's all. That's all she wrote, folks. We did a deal.
Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Daddy. We love you very much. You've been a very big inspiration to us.
Well, is it off or is it still on?
Still rolling.
Okay, then let me say, I don't know if you want to put it on or not because you eliminate it. Recently, a little over a year ago, I met a wonderful lady at Dawn's, at a party at Dawn's house. Karen Clausen, mother of 4 wonderful angels, I call them, and I'm really looking forward to spending the rest of my life with Karen. And I haven't talked in this video, which has been about old things, but that's what's new in the future, and I'm looking forward to our wedding date on June 5th, 2013. Excuse me, January 5th, 2013. Okay. Well, you guys wake me up so early in the morning. What do you expect? I hope that can be edited.
Yes. Oh, I want to ask one more thing. I know, just your grandkids.
Yes.
Each of the grandkids. Could you just say a little something about each of the grandkids? Ashley, Alicia, Sean.
Well, I'm so proud of all of my grandkids. I'm so proud of Ashley going to university now. I wish she would have stayed home with her mom. I'm disappointed that she decided to stay at school for the, quote, experience. But I think she should be, saving her money at home instead of, spending money on room and board and those kind of things. And even if she's getting free room and board for working, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If she was working, she'd be banking the money, instead of spending it on and if she takes out loans, any of the grandchildren take out loans when they don't have to, means that they're starting out life in the hole, when they graduate from school. So I really hate to see them take out loans so that when they start out in life, they have these loans to pay off. And I was reading the other day that one of the things that people are asking, prior to marriage these days is, what kind of student loans do you have? Because you marry somebody and suddenly now you're in the hole because of their student loans. So, creating these student loans could even be a hindrance to marrying the person you think you want to marry, and so on, or to something that becomes an argument, with your spouse later on because you've got these student loans. So I believe in doing everything you can, every kind of way, not to start out life with a bunch of student loans. And Ashley and Alicia and all my grandchildren, I say the same thing. The college experience is wonderful, yes, but stay with your family, stay at home, and save your money so that you can start out life with something in the bank instead of with a negative net worth. Okay? That's to all my grandkids. Now, Alicia, she wants to be CSI, last I heard. Means you got to really work at science. you know, and math and those kind of things. And you've got to have good grades always to be able to get in the school you want, you know, so that you know, you don't end up taking a school because they're the only one you can get into. And Sean, I hope you become a professional baseball player, but have a backup, you know, something that you know you can make a living doing and that you like doing and enjoy doing. And I know baseball is something you enjoy, but, you know, the other alternative is, I guess, doing what Denny does. If you don't make it as a professional player, you're still into sports like Denny does. You know, and I think Denny made a smart move when he decided his talent might not have been as strong as his will in sports to play baseball or whatever. So he decided to do it from the outside looking in as a radio and sports announcer and play-by-play and so on. And that's, you know, gives him the same excitement and fun to go to work every day. And that's the bottom line, I think, too. And whatever you decide to do, it's got to be something you're excited to go to work every day, enjoy going to work every day, so it really ain't going to work, you know. And because if you enjoy what you're doing, it's fun, you know, it's not work. It's like every day's a vacation, okay? Anyway, whatever you do, I hope you enjoy it, and I love you all. And that's the words from Grandpa, a.k.a. great-grandpa, maybe someday, a.k.a. Dad, a.k.a. Brother, Dennis Kapp.